It's the Penn State Hoop Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Nate Bauer here, and this is why Nate is the man. This is why he is the premier person to cover Penn State basketball, because it's not every day that you can get the head coach of a program to sit down with you for 22 minutes and have a conversation about everything from officiating to NIL and have a great conversation in the middle of it. And that's what Nate has been able to do. This is like the second time this year he's gotten a massive interview here on the Hoop Show. So, Nate, just starting off with an excellent job, my friend.
Oh, stop.
Okay.
First of all, Mike Rhoades was gracious enough to join us. So, certainly it felt like a good time, right? It's not a reset in the season, but there's a couple of games here before and after Christmas that separate Penn State from really the rest of the schedule, right? The Big Ten resumption and the calendar flipping into January. So just given that context, Mike Rhoades having a month and a half of the season under his belt, felt like a good time to bring him in and get a little bit of a lowdown on what Penn State's been doing over the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, so just very quickly here, give us a quick rundown of what you guys talk about, and then we'll get to the interview.
Yeah, so certainly the first reason to bring him in is this game against Georgia Tech. Penn State had on Saturday up in New York. I was there. For one reason or another, that building seems to bring the juice. And I mean, everybody knows that, I guess. But even when Penn State's there, right? Like even with an out of market, right? Penn State versus Georgia Tech, certainly not a home game for either of those teams. It still was a building and a game that had a bunch of juice, a bunch of energy. And, unfortunately for Penn State, came out with a result and a result based on something that was very unfavorable to Penn State, not to Penn State's liking.
So we'll get to that and a bunch of other stuff here with Mike Rhoades on the Penn State Hoop Show.
Mike Rhoades, I'm here with Penn State's head basketball coach. 5-6 on the season so far, coming off a little bit of a tough one. I hope it's not too soon, Mike, but left.
It's always too soon, Nate. It's always too soon, but we got to talk about it. I get it.
we got to talk about it. You guys were in New York over the weekend, had a another clawback game, right, against Georgia Tech, and put yourselves in a position to win. Ultimately, weren't able to. How'd you sleep Saturday night?
Not too well. I usually don't sleep well during the season, so it's par for the course. It just, I was proud of our guys' effort. I think everyone's enjoying watching our team play because style of play is exciting. We can get after it. Boy, we sure are up and down, but we have a level of fight in us that I think people at Penn State and a lot of people are telling me they're very proud of. And the last 5-10 minutes, the last 8 minutes of that game, you saw that fight and the press and what the press can do for you. And I loved our guys' approach going down the stretch and in overtime. It's unfortunate that it ended that way, but that's life. That's how it goes.
You were kind of reserved, I would say. I mean, I'm allowed to editorialize here. You didn't go over the top. I didn't know how you would respond. I mean, I'm kind of getting to know you here. Is that you've been around the block, right? You've been through this. Is that how you typically handle situations?
Yeah. I mean, when I think things are, if there's an injustice, I'll fight to death for it. But I also know that, I think it's really important that I set an example for my players. At the moment that I want to tackle the referee, yeah, sure, but that's not gonna help anything. And I really believe that your character shows when it's needed the most. And as disappointed as I was, and I felt it was very unfair what happened at the end of the game, and the ref blew the call. They're not changing it. That's how it goes. And that's my mom used to say to me, "Life's not fair. Deal with it. Get over it." And that's one of those moments. It's not fair. It's disappointing, but you gotta You got to handle it the right way and move on. But you got to be as a coach. I think you got to be the right example, Nate, to your players of handling things the right way, because you see some people go do things differently, and it just it really disrespects the game.
Yeah. You've had, this was probably the most blatant, but down at Maryland, there was a little bit of an imbalance on the
Yeah.
whistle. I guess just given kind of the narrative arc of this season, right? It feels like your hands have been full in terms of how to handle these guys, right? The players on your team in the wake of some of these losses. How has that gone in the days since then?
Yeah, I mean, you have one-on-one conversations, you have team conversations, but I always believe teams take on the personality of the head coach and the coaching staff. So honestly, Nate, that's like the biggest thing to me is I could be making all excuses and complaining and crying about it and going public with it all the time. But is that getting us ready for the next game? Is that going to help us have a great practice the next day? Is that going to help us get a little bit better this week? Now, I'm going to fight for our team, and I'm going to do the necessary things to make sure that my team, gets a fair shot every time we go out on the court. I believe in doing that. I'm going to do that the right way and the professional way for sure. But I agree. Like, sometimes you got to find a way anyway to win the game. And then, so all that stuff you can just blow that stuff away. But unfortunately that hasn't happened. And a new team, a first year program, we've been very close a lot of times, and some has been ugly. Some of it's been really cool. It's, we've been going through it all here, Nate. But I believe it's only going to help us get better and get us stronger and make guys understand that, it takes a lot to win games in college basketball. And sometimes it doesn't go your way. It's not fair. You got to react and respond the right way.
You've dialed in, and we've known some of these things that were going to be challenges or vulnerabilities for you guys this season. But I'm curious, do you feel like aside from the results, you've seen some of the improvements that you've wanted to make over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think we've improved a lot offensively. I think certain guys have shined in their roles better. I think that has helped us. I think we've found a rotation that has helped us here. From the summer, I thought we'd shoot the ball better. We're starting to shoot the ball better now, especially from three. That's really important. I was worried about the turnovers. The guys have done a great job of taking care of the ball. I think we only had 5 or 6 the other day. I think we're doing a better job of getting a shot every time down. That's why we're scoring points. I was worried from day one about our rebounding, and that's number one on the list. We're not rebounding at a level to help us win. We've had some great, Nate, you saw it Saturday. We had some great defensive possessions that we contested threes or contested bad twos or made guys miss at the basket, and we didn't come up with the rebound. And that's been very frustrating as a coach. We got to continue to get better rebounding. And some of it is lineup. Some of it is we're just outmatched at certain positions, but we got to find ways to rebound better. We knew that would be a little bit of an Achilles heel from the summer. That was a big concern. And, I didn't think our defense number-wise would be as bad as it is right now. That has a lot to do with it, but we have to improve in that going into January.
Did the press at the end, is that a glimpse, I guess, of what you're looking for? Is that where you want to be? Where are you in that process?
I mean, yes, I think we got to be more aggressive. We got to be more aggressive in the press. You saw the great aggressiveness and what it can do for you and how it could change the momentum of the game. So, yeah, we want to find a balance of that without a doubt. I think our half-court defense at times has been a sieve. So you got to get back and set your defense because and that's why we haven't pressed as much all the time. But I still think this group is better when we're aggressive and flying around. We just got to make sure we rebound out of it.
Yep. Kind of a kill two birds, multiple birds with one stone trip to New York over the weekend. There were other things that you guys were able to accomplish during the trip. I'm aware of a dinner, I guess, on Friday night. Can we talk about that a little bit? Just some of the things that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you could talk about anything with me. I mean, look, number one is We've been actively trying to build our NIL and our NIL brand, More to Give, and get people involved and be a part of our program. And I just, I keep saying it. I am friend raising before I'm fundraising, Nate. And I think you've seen it. I want to get as many people involved in our basketball program and feel a part of it in different ways. Number one is I want people to show up. When we had 10,000 people at the Ohio State game and we win that game, and after the game, 20 minutes after game, people are still there. Can't wait to see our guys and celebrating. Like, that's the part where I want fans and I want people supporting our program to sweat with us, to be there with us. The other side of it is, of course, as you know, the NIL, the name, image, and likeness. It's a hot topic these days, but it's something that we have to be very competitive in that arena. And I've been very active as the head coach here at Penn State of getting people on board for that, getting people to support our players, getting guys and Happy Valley United to build a cool business model so we do it the right way. And number one, these guys are getting a great education. I want them to be Penn State graduates. That's a big deal for the rest of their life. But while they're here representing us as basketball players, if they can get some help and some support from people and businesses and in different ways, that's pretty cool too. And a lot of these guys have done some really cool things for themselves and their families because of some great support from people.
Where do you feel like you're at, right? When you first got the job, it was one of the first things we talked about is what the foundation is and the appetite, right, of people to support the NIL side of things. You've had some time now to kind of survey the scene. Where do you feel like you're at?
Yeah, and this isn't just at Penn State. This is everywhere. The number one thing is, it's a hot topic, so people are nervous about it until they're educated about it. And I think that's what, we hired Pat Flannery, my former coach at Lebanon Valley, won a national championship with him. And he was at Bucknell and had some awesome years at Bucknell as a coach and then got in development there. And he retired and moved to Hershey and, have him around our program, but also now in a capacity as general manager of men's basketball in the Happy Valley United. Here is a guy, a basketball guy, but also has fundraising and in that type of arena, Nate. So what allows us to do is create a business model, create a program where lots of people could be a part of supporting our guys, but understand how we're going to do it and do it the right way. To me, it's not the number one thing in our program. If it's the number one thing on your list as a recruit, I don't want you, because you got to come here and get a great education and play big time college basketball. And but I also want guys to know we're going to be very competitive in that arena. We don't have to be the best in the Big Ten, but let's be competitive. So when the guys are here or we're in recruiting, we could give people examples of what our student athletes here at Penn State are doing through the NIL, which is some really cool things. And it becomes very supportive of them and also that they can support their family in different ways. And I'm really proud of that. I've had some thank you notes and some really cool phone calls for some parents and our players because they're in a cool position that they weren't in a year ago. The other part of it too is this allow our guys, Nate, through the NIL to go out into the community and be a part of the community in a lot of charitable events. And we just did one the other day. We went shopping. Our guys took 35 kids shopping at Target. And if you would have saw some of our guys with a fifth grader, a third grader, a 7-year-old, and walking around helping them pick out gifts for them and their family, that's a really cool thing. And that gets this big, tough, strong, college basketball player. He's down on his hands and his knees playing with this little kid. So those are the things that, we're always going to do things in the community, but we can do it through the NIL that I think people will want to support, but also have a lot of fun being a part of it as well.
I'll give you the opportunity here, whether you answer it or not. How much do you feel like you need? And is it a different, I'm dealing with football too, and they just feel like very different lifts, right? In terms of what the impact could be based
Well,
on
I will
what
tell you
they're
this,
doing?
Nate. My mom always told I never talk money, politics, or religion, so I'm not going to change that now. But I will tell you this: uh, we don't have to be at the top of the Big Ten and doing some of the things other schools are doing, because that's I want to develop our players. I want our players to develop themselves on and off the court. So, we're going to have a very competitive NIL, and I think it's only going to get better and better. But I also think it's going to be competitive with everybody else around the country, because it's a great school. It's on the biggest stage in college basketball. We're doing things as an athletic department that is really supporting our players. And then we have the NIL piece led by Coach Flannery, where we're going to go out and look, and we want to go out and raise money so we could help our guys and support our guys and be really competitive in the Big Ten with that. I think that's really important. But I also want it to be a business model that it really lasts, Nate.
Yep.
Some people are doing it just to pay for play and how much they can give out to get all these players, and these players are gone in a year or two. I still want to. I still believe in the development piece. I want to get that high school senior that turns into a special player when they're a junior here. We can go into transfer portal to fill needs, but guys that fit Penn State and guys that fit what I'm all about on and off the court. So, yeah, we have to be competitive, man. We got to have a bucket where we can take care of our guys every year, but also another bucket that allows guys that help them in retaining them here when they're doing well, or other circumstances and stuff like that. I think that's really important. But to me, it's about these players. Every day they wake up here at Penn State, man, Penn State's taking care of me as a college basketball player. Most importantly, as a student athlete, I have all the resources to make me the best version of me. And oh, by the way, we have a competitive NIL that is very supportive of me and my family, and also is able to, brand themselves and get out in the real world and see some things while they're here. That helps them grow and gets them excited about things they can do in the real world through the NIL.
You've you've obviously been through this coaching profession for many years, but
Yeah.
it has changed. It feels like over the last 3 or 4 years to where you need to re-recruit in a lot of ways your players after every season.
Every year.
Much,
Yeah.
right? How big of a piece is the NIL in that conversation, and where do you feel like that element needs to be to feel comfortable?
I don't care what any coach says. It's part of our discussion now. It's part of it's here to stay. And just like the transfer portal, it's here to stay. So we have to accept it. Let's learn a lot about it. But then we have to accept it. And now, how can we use that to our advantage? Number one thing, Nate, of all of this is I want guys that want to be here. I want guys that want to be here because they want a Penn State education. They want to be part of, one of the greatest traditions in a class athletic program in the country, right? It has raised the bar in college athletics. I want them to be here because they know they're getting great support as a student athlete, but also that they know, hey, you know what? Coach and everybody around our basketball program, they're going to look out for me in other ways too. I hope they see that. But I want them, number one, they want to be here with us because it's a fun style of play. We're building a family. We can help develop in the pros. And then there's all this other cool resources along with the NIL. I think that's really important.
You've last one on this topic, but it feels like you've had a long-term vision in mind that's kind of been guiding how you operate. I'm wondering how that contrasts with the urgency of having NIL where you need it to be based on keeping this going.
Well, that's why I'm actively, as the head coach, even during the season, trying to friend raise and get more supporters, more people at the games, more people to show up. I'm always challenging everybody around here. What more can I do as the head coach? Go meet people. Last week I met with 4 different people. Then we went up to New York City the night before. I jumped in the car right after practice with a GA to get to Manhattan to sit down with some people and then meet the team later in the evening. I have to do that because all the things that I think we can build here over time, it's a moot point if we don't if we don't have each area moving forward, and NIL is one of them for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of moving forward, obviously this is hopefully a good point in the season to kind of reflect on the past and look ahead to what's next. Where do you feel like you guys are right now? Obviously, coming off your Saturday and these two games sandwiched around Christmas.
Well, we gotta really. I think we really got to get better from now into January. We got a good Lemoyne team who's dangerous coming in here in 2 days. We gotta be ready to play them. Let's take a little break, go home, eat some good home cooking, and get back here and get to work. I think we've showed at times the level we can possibly get to. We're very inconsistent. We're very inconsistent, and I hate to say it, but that's part of being a first year program and lots of new faces and guys still trying to. I mean, like it or not, and I could give you coach speak, but I'll give you Mike Rhoades speak. When you got lots of new guys, it's one thing if you had 3 or 4 new freshmen and everybody's returning. Then things are more normal, understandable. There's more consistency. We're just not consistent where I would love us to be. And being a well-wisher, I wish we were more consistent right now. But that's this is my 4th time taking over a program, and I get it. Randall, Macon, Rice, and VCU, and now here. Your first year, there's a lot of this, a lot of ups and downs, and when you get on that, I said this in the press conference. When you get on the peak, you feel so good, like the end of the Ohio State game, even the end of the Georgia Tech game. Like, man, we found another gear, and then something happens that knocks you off that peak, and you're in the valley. Then you got to fight to get out of the valley together, and you got to find ways to get out of there as a coach. And that first year is really hard. It's hard. It's hard to get consistent play and consistent understanding of what needs to be done. But that's the fun of it too, because when you use this year as a great foundation and take a big step, that's why we want to make sure we retain our players and we want to make sure we build on it, because that's the way you solidify your foundation and build on it. Is there's been players in the program for a number of years, and when the first day of practice you go to the shell defensive drill, you're not coaching 13 new players, you're coaching 3 or 4 new players. That's when the bar gets raised. So I think there's some games we should have won. There's some games that we really beat ourselves. I thought we had some stretches in games, and we had some good wins where we played some really good basketball. And I think the Texas A&M game, even though we didn't win, the way we played that game raised the bar. We just didn't keep that bar there. And we really learned, of not having a good enough approach on and off the court in Florida that really hurt us. And we took some lumps, and we lost 4 in a row, and we were really down in the valley, and the guys were dejected. And then, we got better and better in practices. We held guys their feet to the fire, and you love them really, you love them hard, and you coach them harder, and I think that works. And I think the guys responded to it. And look, if the Georgia Tech game, we would have won that game by 1, we'd be sitting here with a better record, but still with some of the same issues. We got to rebound better. We got to play better defense, and we got to get some guys off the bench to play better for us and give us more. But we're improving. Maybe not at the rate that I want, but we're improving.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to that process, to spend your time more wisely than hanging out with us here. But I do appreciate you coming by and spending some time with us today.
You got it, Nate. Anytime. I wish you all the best. Have a happy holiday, safe holiday, and we'll see all you guys at the Bryce Jordan Center here real soon.
Thanks again to Penn State basketball coach Mike Rhoades for sitting down. I'm always amazed how you're able to just talk to these guys, and a lot of times these conversations are 10 minutes, and it's like there's We got to get going. And they seem to love to talk to you about stuff and and get some of those insights into the program. One of the things I just want to start with this, Nate, is he really downplayed NIL. I think from a perspective of, we don't want to be an NIL school. We want to be competitive, but we don't want to be an NIL school. And I just thought that just right off the top, just his framing of it, I thought was really interesting. And maybe I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I'm trying to paraphrase kind of his perspective of, if NIL's first thing, we don't want you.
Yeah, I would just use a different word than downplay, because I think that he understands and recognizes how important it is, right?
Okay.
There was a gathering of some pretty influential folks in New York on the Friday night before the game. He discussed that. And it's out there, right? I mean, laying it on the line. This is something that for Penn State basketball to be competitive in this arena, you cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore the process. There is no sense in pretending via a coaching change as though everything was solved, right? From when Micah Shrewsbury was in this space a year ago, at the same time talking about NIL and what it means for recruiting, what it means for the retention of your players. And so Mike Rhoades is fighting that same fight and having some of those same conversations now. I think it's much better, right? It is dramatically improved for Penn State basketball from where it was. They are organized. They have a guy in Pat Flannery leading the charge. We had him here on the show last month. Like, those are massive, important steps for this organization, for this program to be able to compete in this arena. But at the same time, there's an urgency to it. If you are not raising the money, if you are not raising the relationships, right? Him talking about friend raising, right?
It's a good term.
Well, but it's so important. It's so important to build those relationships, to be able to establish that you're not just throwing money at entitled players, right? I think that's a big part of the misperceptions that are out there about what NIL is that,
and maybe that's what I was picking up on, by the way, is he was trying to very clearly define Penn State as a program and how they're going to use these funds. And it can come off sometimes as, you mentioned the urgency, and he was very much still the long-term view of, this is a place you come to get a degree to develop as a basketball player, to be a junior or a senior playing, not a guy where I'm coaching 13 new players every single year. I think that those two messages sometimes do get conflated, and I think it's a good thing we're talking about it here, because I think that the language is important around this, because as he mentioned, it's still a sensitive topic for a lot of people.
It is a sensitive topic, but it's one that I think through his outreach, through Pat Flannery's outreach, through Happy Valley United's outreach, is a bridge that is trying to be built, of getting people to understand how this actually works, what this is going towards, the families it helps support, some of the philanthropic side of it that Penn State tries to be involved with, and to set that example for these kids. I mean, you look at what happened last offseason, right? And there were going to be 6 or 7 guys that had to move on anyway, right? This program was going to take on a reset, no matter what happened, whether Micah Shrewsbury stayed or Mike Rhoades came in. That did not matter. They were going to have to go to the portal. That was going to be a big part of the last season transitioning into this season. However, guys stayed as well, right? Kanye Clary stayed. Kanye Clary is, if not the best player on this team, one of the 2 best players on the team, right? He's right there with Ace Baldwin. He's had an outstanding performance. His involvement, his continued involvement in the program it's a little bit of the same message that I've talked about in the past. You don't have to be necessarily the best offer, right, in terms of a financial package for Kanye Clary to stick with Penn State next offseason, but you got to have something. You got to be able to be competitive in that space. And I think that's a lot of what Mike Rhoades is talking about, in terms of, no, you don't want to I mean, if this year proves anything, it's that you definitely 100% do not want to flip the roster every offseason. That cannot be how it works, because he's going through it. They're going through it right now as a staff, trying to get these guys together and on the same page. But at the same time, for that development side of players that you've had in the program and you want to be at Penn State for 4 years, you still have to be competitive in the NIL space for those guys to stick around.
What did you make of his assessment of first years in rebuilds, which he's mentioned he's done several times? He seemed pretty clear about he expected this to happen, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because I you have initial impressions, right? Things that you're expecting versus what actually happens, and I think that there's a fascinating dynamic in terms of me being, I wouldn't say off the mark, but I didn't know necessarily how to expect him approaching this job, but it feels as though he's treated it with a very level head. He has kept patience and kept an understanding that there would be, he hasn't freaked out over it, right? That was one of the very fascinating early dynamics that he talked about, was Ace Baldwin being able to deal with losing. We've talked about this on the show before. Well, it's not just Ace, it's him too. He's a fierce competitor. He's a guy who has a reputation of losses killing him. And every single piece of what I've seen out of his response to some of these losses, of which some, including Saturday, were like egregious, right? I mean, just, he has every right to be upset about the way that game played out and the way that they lost that game based on that, that officiating. But he's put out a public facing calmness, a steadiness, a steady hand to how he wants to run this program. And I think that it is, at least from my perception, trickling down. It is making its way through the players. It is making its way through the team to, hey, listen, sometimes this is what happens, and you can freak out about it and you can be really upset and have what happened down in Florida, where one loss turned into three, turned into really four.
Right?
You take your eye off the ball. He hasn't. That they have started it. It seems to me they have started to take some of the pressure off of themselves and just play. And if you can do that and focus on the things that you need to improve upon, which they have many, right? There are plenty of things that this team still needs to get better at. It seems like they're taking some of those strides.
So let's talk about the game. I know you wanted to get into Georgia Tech a little bit. So what did you want to talk about with it?
I mean, just briefly. I mean, certainly the way that horrible call, right? I mean, even the Georgia Tech players that they had in the post game. I'm paraphrasing here, but the one kid, Reeves, was like, yeah, it's I thought it was no contact, and then at minimum a no call, right? Like, there was no way in time and circumstance. Forget the fact that it wasn't a foul, that Ace Baldwin didn't even touch the guy. On top of that, if you're an official, you know that you don't call a foul on the floor in a mad scramble with 2 seconds left on the clock. So Penn State is sitting today at 5-6 overall instead of 6-5, and you can't get it back, right? That's one of those things. But I am fascinated to see, it is to Penn State's benefit that they have Lemoyne and Ryder, right, between now and the start of the resumption of Big Ten play.
It's a good Lemoyne team.
They can.
It's a good Lemoyne team, is what he said. That's what he said.
Did he say that?
He did. I heard it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But they should have an opportunity to reset a little bit, get their bearings, and try to make some of those on the floor improvements, right? The things that this team still has not done well, to get, if they can get a little bit better with some of those areas, including, he talked about it, second chance points off of rebounds. And it's not even just second chance points. It's all the extra looks that these teams are getting at the basket that is just kind of crushing to Penn State, because they play good defense for 25 seconds. They force a bad shot, and
Mhm.
that bad shot turns into a long rebound, an easy what have you, it just turns into an extra possession for Penn State's opponents, and they've been able to convert either on the next shot, the shot after that shot, or at the free throw line.
Yeah.
And all of those components, if Penn State can't clean those things up, like I cannot imagine how frustrated he probably is over that one aspect, because you're looking at a team that is, if Penn State was rebounding better right now, they're probably 3 wins better
Yeah.
than they are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of tough to swallow, but also it sets them up for the rest of the season to they should be competitive. This is a team that has demonstrated that it can play with those mid-tier type teams. They just need to be able to do a couple of those elements better to get themselves over the hump.
Nate, always appreciate your insight and your coverage of Penn State basketball. By the way, if you're here and you're watching this full video, you're at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Congratulations. If you want to check out Blue White Illustrated's YouTube channel, always a good idea. We post select parts of the show from onto the YouTube channel from here on the site. But there's a reason. Like, this is the good stuff we're keeping here on the site. So appreciate everyone being here and their interest in Penn State basketball. Nate, as always, great job, buddy.
Thank you so much. This was another fun show, and obviously thank you so much to Mike Rhoades for being so gracious with his time and joining us today.
I don't know if we'll have a show next week with the holidays, but we'll be back with more Penn State basketball talk. Stay tuned, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for the next Penn State Hoop Show. We'll talk to you then.